Yeah, I know you've been waiting for this. Me too. So this is going to be my roughly 6-month review of the Dynaudio LYD-48s behind me. The last time we saw these was about 6 months ago when I got them, and they replaced my JBL 305s. I've had those for probably almost 10 years, I would say, ever since I first started messing around with music production. So this video is not gonna go into like sound examples or anything like that because, you know, you can't really do that with monitors over YouTube. So it's kind of like, so if you're watching this, I'm sure you're looking into these a little bit. These are obviously the Dynaudio LYD-48s. They're a 3-way monitor. They're self-powered. You can find all the specs on your own. I don't need to go through a lot of that stuff. Yeah, so when I first got these, I unboxed them and they look nice. They look super cool. I put them on cinder block towers instead of like my desk, which I had my monitors on my desk before, and moving from the desk to stands was like a whole new world. So if you haven't got your monitors on stands, highly recommend. The cinder block situation is like my favorite out of what I've tried. I've tried wooden stands and metal stands, but the cinder blocks are just so heavy and they couple with the floor with like they don't couple with the floor. I guess they resist vibration because they're just so freaking heavy. And then isopucks, isoacoustic isopucks, put those under your monitors, some sort of isolation. Foam is okay, but I definitely recommend some sort of like actual shock absorption. Going from nothing, or going from foam under the desk to isopucks helped a lot. And then going from the desk and isopucks to the stands were just like mind-blowing, right? My first listen was honestly like, I was kind of upset. I was kind of upset. I had these really high hopes where I was just like, man, these are gonna be like freaking life-changing, like right off the bat, right? And because new monitors, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh, there's the 3 ways going from 2 ways. And I was just like, I was ready to just be blown away, right? And I listened to some stuff and I'm just like, man, I'm like not impressed. I'm not blown away right now. But then I found some good mixes. So the first thing I learned was that these things are honest. They're brutally honest, and they are not hyped in any way. I mean, obviously that's what you want studio monitors to be, essentially, is flat and just, you know, truthful. It's not like they're bad. They'll just tell you if what you're listening to is bad, which is like a different switch for me. So coming from, you know, like the $130 each JBL 2-way 5-inch speakers to these. And I've listened to like the Adams, the A7Xs. Like I went to Guitar Center and listened to like a bunch of the budget or mid-range type of situations, and just got an idea. And I just really told myself I want a 3-way monitor. If I'm gonna spend the money, I wanna get a 3-way. And this is probably one of the most affordable yet still freaking awesome 3-way monitors without spending like $5,000 plus. So for like a little over $2,000, these things are phenomenal for what I've experienced so far. What I can tell you, yeah, they're incredibly honest, and they will tell you if you're listening to something bad. And all of a sudden, a lot of my favorite music, or you know, stuff that I really like, I'm starting to not like. Well, only when I listen on these. You know, you can listen in your car and stuff, it's a different story, but it's like, man, I thought this drop was harder. You know, you listen to something and it's just like, man, this doesn't hit as hard when this breakdown hits or this drop hits or whatever. The low end is really, I wouldn't say like ultra tight, but it's very tight and responsive, but still like full. Like the bass is deep. The low end is super deep. They say they go down to 32 Hertz, and they mean it for sure. Like just doing a sine wave sweep and just checking like audible frequency response in this room being like mostly treated, like but not crazy treated. I don't have huge bass traps in the back wall or anything, but the low end is good. The low end's super, super deep. I didn't need a sub. I had a JBL sub under here and I took it out because I tried to add it in and it was just causing issues and I didn't want to deal with it. And I figure the less elements I add, if I'm getting what I need to out of just these, I don't need to add anything else to kind of like, you know, provide a different tonality in the low end, I feel like that would kind of add something that doesn't match, right? So I just got rid of the sub. The high end is really good. It's not overly bright either. It's nice because it's not really fatiguing. Obviously you shouldn't listen loud, but like when I do listen loud, because you know you gotta jam out once in a while, right? So the high end is really pleasing, and it's very honest as well. I would say like the top end of the vocals and stuff is really easy to hear when there's like too much top end for sure, and then it's definitely tell when there's not enough. Yeah, so I mean the high end's good. They're just Silk Dome tweeters, so I mean there's not too much to say. Now what really changed my life, in my opinion, was the mid-range. Having that third driver, whoo! Let me tell you, I think that was at first that was part of the reason why I didn't like them at first, was because I was hearing a lot of mid-range, and most of us are just, when there's too much mid-range, it sounds like honky or sounds like telephony or like, and these don't sound like that. Like don't put that to these. When you hear the mid-range properly, when you hear what's actually there in the mid-range, at first it was weird, and then it's like wow, I can hear so many things and so much detail in the mid-range that I couldn't hear before. So I think that's a massive benefit with the three-way setup, and again, that's what I really strived to get if I was going to get new monitors, was a three-way. Solos and vocals are super easy to like predict where it's sitting in the mix, and I think what this whole package gave me right off the bat was when I first did a mix, I went back to like an old mix and I kind of made some changes because I didn't have anything to like totally mix fresh from the start at that moment. So I just went back to some other stuff, did the mix, and went to the car on my way home, because that's what I do. I just listen to my work on the way home that's the car check time, right? And it was the first time ever in my own mixing career that the car check was like A+. Listened on the way home, and I was so happy. I was so happy that the mix sounded exactly like I wanted it to in the car. Like obviously nothing's perfect, but it was miles beyond what I've ever experienced as far as like the results, like just coming out of the studio fresh, you know? The depth is really good, like the 3D-ness. I like when I was looking at monitor reviews and like shopping for stuff, I wasn't exactly sure what that meant. If you get into like the mid-range, high-end stuff, I think that really starts to come into play as far as how well they present the soundstage and the stereo image. I'll say that too. The stereo image and the depth and the soundstage, all those things on these was just like a massive difference from what I had before. Listening on those, it was like flat, okay, I'm listening to speakers. Like, okay, no, I'm not listening to speakers anymore. I'm listening to like the sounds. I don't know if I have too much more to say about these. Except for their Evan from the future here. I forgot to mention two things yesterday. One of them is that I noticed that the difference between small movements on like EQ and compression are much more noticeable. And I've heard other people say this before, but I really felt that when I move like 1 or 2 dBs on an EQ, I can hear it. That being said, also going back to the point of when I listen to commercial music or music that, you know, like really professional people in my eyes have put out, I notice that there is a bigger difference from a good mix to a great mix. So like they all sounded pretty dang good on my JBLs, and it was hard to really tell like, you know, what the big differences are. And now it's like night and day. The gap between great and incredible is so much larger. Like if you just take the scale of everything now and just stretch it out, that's what I feel about like the EQ moves and the differences between good and great mixes. So back to yesterday, Evan. They've been fantastic for me so far. Again, I think the biggest, or one of the biggest, most important things you can do is obviously treat your room and Put your monitors on stands separate from your desk. Yeah, I mean, set up your monitors, like move them around. So put them in one place, listen. Have a friend, have a buddy help you, you know, scooch them a little bit in or out or forward or backwards, you know, move yourself, like do your research on your room measurements and how to lay out your room based on how big it is and how much treatment you need. Yeah, so anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up. This has been just my ramble, my review, my opinions about the Dynaudio LYD48s. I love them, super stoked. If you're shopping for new monitors, definitely consider these. There's a lot of good three-way, mid-range monitors out there. I went with these and I couldn't be happier. Thanks Sweetwater for the literally one-day shipping on these. Check out the Dynaudio LYD48s. I'll catch you later. Peace out.